So part one of this video, I was talking all about processing the emotions of fear and doubt. Like really giving yourself from who you were meant to be, all the love you have inside, all the passion, and worrying that it's not going to come back and that you're not enough and that things won't work out the way you really desire them and see them to be inside yourself. Well, welcome back to the Be Well Forest, an iPaintCreatures production. I'm IBC, your host, and we're in the Be Well Forest, which is in beautiful Northern California, and that's where the FunkyIPuppets, the puppets, are going to come out and start to enter the epic story experience of Matsu. So in this video, I promised I was going to explore the creatures that really grab on the vulnerability and use it and transform it into their superpower by renewing their thoughts and focusing that they are enough and just their existence is enough, that they are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and prosperity already without anyone or any circumstances or outward appearances or situations answering them. You know, you are already fulfilled. So if you walk with that courage and that knowing and that happiness, that joy, it will all come back to you. So the first one, of course, is the young boy in the Matsu story named Shigin. And he goes through that life-threatening disease, a lot parallel to my story. And the doctors and everyone said he wasn't going to go on to be anything, or even he would cease to exist. And after that, he used his vulnerability to see through all of his paintings and his poems that he was destined to do something great, and it would all come back for everything that he had been given and had been broken in front of him. So that's Shigin. The second character is the other one I explored, Tyko, and he's a Kappa yokai. He's a water creature, and he goes through the similar thing, and it kind of parallels my life. And it took me to write this epic story experience of Matsu to kind of see that I was using these characters to communicate my wealth inside myself and what I've been through and what I transformed to share with the rest of the world. So Tyko, he goes back to 96542 when he was discovered, after he was discovered by Shigin's mom and became the turtle pet, but he knew he was a Kappa, so he goes back to 96542, right? And he loses his father. And then the Atomikkkan, you know, exploded and took the spirit world and took all creativity, inspiration, and he felt depleted and dissolved. And he lost purpose, he lost focus, he had a lot of emotions that seemed of fear and doubt, that nothing would work out, love wouldn't return, and he had no purpose. He wasn't enough to do what he really felt under his shell, you know, inside himself. He lost his story stone powers and the ability to calibrate his poetic compass and project his painted poetic symphony, but then he revives it. He finds it again. He finds it deep down in himself, and then he inspires Echo, and then he inspires Fuji, which comes back to Shigin. And then another character in the last videos I explored is Fonkadelic, and he comes from the character Funk. And he used vulnerability because the Funk character thought he was stuck forever. His Funk was, you know, stuck. He couldn't get it unstuck, and he couldn't find that vulnerability to be who he be and express himself and tell the stories of tragedy and loss and betrayal and pain, and bring that and transform that into his superpower, supernatural power of what he was meant here to be, and looked at those situations all as shaping him to be who he be, and he became Fonkadelic. And so he has the power of music and the power of vulnerability to try anything that's in front of him, because he knows that he's on his mission and the purpose will become true. And the last character is a real magical character, and we're gonna have to visit probably a bunch of them soon, because I'm gonna start sharing some of the music from the epic story experience of Matsu, and she's a big part of it. And she is the first kind of gender female, or the feminine energy of the first FunkyIPuppets, the first 15 that come out in the story of Matsu in the Be Well Forest. And her name is Melawdee. She also goes by a few other names. She was the Subsakian, and she began as the water wheel in the sky. And she also became the codename Outpost, and she's the one that led all the FunkyIPuppets to the Be Well Forest, a sanctuary that they didn't know existed back on Earth, because they thought when the Atomikkkan exploded, all the spirit world went away, so there's no inspiration, no creativity, and no expression for them to thrive on. You know, because that's their energy source, more than like food and sleep for us humans. These yokai creatures, they have the source of creativity and imagination and expressive and courage inside themselves to be who they be. That's who they thrive on. So Melawdee took on many different forms, all the way to starting in the water wheel in the sky that created the Great Flood back then. And then she was molded and shaped by Mix, Fade, and Scratch, the Kappa DJs, into the Subsakian, which became the underwater spaceship that made it through the Great Flood. And then she found sanctuary in a forest near the cucumber farm that the Kappa DJs created. And when Atomikkkan exploded, she floated and used her own intuition and her senpai yokai powers to get to 96542, and then became on the outer rims. And eventually she was found by Aikido and Ra floating on the outer rims. And she basically, that's a song called Route of Marbled Blue, where they find her, and then they find that she has this whole inside, which is a performance space, nurturing inside for the arts, that what it symbolizes. And she also has a magical tea bar, and that's where the Be Well tea comes into play. And then one night when they're all in the Be Well lounge, she uses the elixir to kind of get all the FunkyIPuppets that are in there at that time, and they transform down to the Be Well Forest right here. So Melawdee, and it's M-E-L-A-W-D-E-E, so Melawdee, so she kind of has the law of the spirit inside of her. She uses vulnerability in just going through all those transitions to land finally in the Be Well Forest and be the elder of song and melody and the wisdom of how poetry and song are the same thing. And in our world, we've separated them. You know, we have the pop song and then we have the poet over here. Well, the poet was the origin, because first there was the word. And then, you know, the instrument of our body of chanting, like my old bachan, my grandma used to do, the chanting of poetry, married itself back together. And that's what the Matsu story is all about. So remember, use your vulnerability, be who you be, own your story. And when you get those emotions of fear and doubt, know everything is rigged in your favor. Everything is going to work out exactly the way you desire, especially if you're coming from a real creative standpoint in whatever you do in life. Use the four corners of the arts. Express yourself boldly and know that it's all going to work itself out. Love wholeheartedly. It will all come back. And when you get terrorized with the fear and doubt, hold tight and know you are enough. Thank you for tuning in to iPaintCreatures and the iPaintCreatures channel and the Be Well Forest. And thank you for watching all these videos. Leave comments below about your vulnerability. And let's get a dialogue going. And thank all of you who give a special thanks. It's been incredible. It's real rewarding. Keeps me going. Keeps me really embracing my vulnerability as a superpower. And check out the Gumroad, the Patreon, and Twitch.tv. And stay in touch. And we are going to keep on this journey. Thank you for supporting me wholeheartedly. I'm going to keep on flowing. Peace. iPaintCreatures and the FunkyIPuppets.